Almost everyone that has ever lived on this earth was sung to sleep when they were an infant. Google the word lullaby and you shall receive an abundance of advice, playlists, and equipment. All of this to get that precious being to go off into dreamland. All of us have heard of different lullabies, so I thought it would be fun to give an overview of the genre itself. Yes, a YouTube video this long is considered very brief when we're talking about a thing that has existed in almost every culture for over 4,000 years. Every sentence I say going forward could easily be extended into 75-page dissertations. We're talking about the snowflake on the tip of an iceberg, and we're not even seeing the whole thing yet. As such, most of the lullabies we will analyze in this video will come from Western European origins. Maybe someday we can go back and review cradle songs from other parts of the world, but I'm hoping that this video is a good starting point. You may be asking why I am discussing this, and it's because it's not really talked about. All of it started when I was in my senior year of college. I had to do research on folk songs from Southern Louisiana, and one listening example from the Library of Congress was labeled lullaby. And my brain started to go haywire. Like, what the hell are lullabies? Like, is it a folk song? And why didn't we talk about this? I feel like I should actually know what lullabies are because, I read this entire big ass book of history of Western music, and I don't know. I didn't know what lullabies were, and that kind of, concerned me. We all know lullabies out there, but there's not a lot of discussion in what makes them tick. Like we discuss with classical or jazz, hip hop or pop music, zydeco and country music. It's just not really discussed. So after researching an iceberg amount of data for the past 4 months, this is what we're going to discuss today. But please strap in, it is going to be a wild ride. The history of lullabies, also known as cradle songs, is kind of hard to research because the genre itself was taken for granted for many centuries. A quote from the Oxford Dictionary of Nursery Rhymes kind of sums up this conundrum. Little has been written about the lullaby, though it is the most natural form of song and has been declared to be the genesis of all song. The problem partially stems on the fact that studying the history of ancient music is a pretty arduous task in general. Music is an auditory art form, and musicologists will only ever be able to recover fragments of artifacts to study. Of those fragments will be notated music that were slowly written down by scribes in the 10th century. Since writing anything down back in 900 AD was a holy pain in the butt, the church was very particular in what kind of music was written down. One historian explained that lullabies were seen with the same insignificance as folk songs until just a few centuries ago because of the people who were singing it. Women were the main caretakers of children, therefore they were the performers of these songs. Common songs sung by women during a time when women were oppressed were not considered important enough to be notated down on very expensive parchment paper and ink. Cool. But here are a few things we do know. One of the oldest pieces of evidence of lullabies comes from good old Babylonia as far back as 2000 BC. It is theorized that these songs were considered incantations, magical spells to quiet the child, or else. The literal translation of this tablet is, "Little one who dwelt in the house of darkness, have seen the light of the sun. Why are you crying? Why are you yelling? Why didn't you cry in there? You have roused the god of the house. The bullman has woken up. Who roused me? Who startled me? The little one roused you. The little one startled you. As onto drinkers of wine, as onto tipplers, may sleep fall on him." So one of the first lullabies that ever existed is about a mom worried that her drunk husband will be woken up by the baby. Awesome! Music notation would not be invented for another few centuries, also by the Mesopotamians, so it is impossible to determine the melody of this piece if there was one. However, we can already see some of the characteristics that are in more modern lullabies. More on that later. The English word lullaby comes from the Middle English word lullin or lulle, meaning to lull, and by means to sleep or to be near or farewell. It depends on your source. Lullabies had become recognized as some sort of art form by the 1300s. In 1398, writer and translator John de Trevisa wrote this sentence: "Nurses use lullins and other cradle songs to please the wits of the child." We do not see a lot more written evidence on cradle songs until the late 13th century in Wales. Now, I'm really hoping I'm saying all these names correctly because I could not find the phonetic pronunciations of them. The Book of Aneurin, one of the 4 ancient books of Wales, is a 13th century incomplete manuscript about the Battle of Cathraeth that took place in the 6th century. Within the pages detailing death and destruction is a Cumbrian lullaby called Pays Dinagad. The song is a mother telling her child about their father's skills as a hunter and eerily fits within the themes of the book. A loose translation of the last line reads, "Be it a boar, a wild cat, or a fox, none would escape but that had strong wings." Damn, lullabies are dark. Also, more on that later. The printing press, originally invented in China around 900 AD, made its way to Western Europe, and mass production became commonplace by the mid-1400s. However, children's books were not very popular and or profitable until 1765, when John Newbery published Mother Goose's Melody, later known as Sonnets for the Cradle, in 1780. Nursery rhymes did not become a phrase until 1806, when a book, Rhymes for the Nursery, was published. And the spine of the book just happened to say nursery rhymes, and it stuck. And since then, nursery rhymes and Mother Goose have been synonymous terms with one another in England and the United States. Popularity has only grown since then because professional musicians want to compose their own versions of lullabies, including but not limited to Johannes Brahms, Amy Beach, Mark Fax, Bela Bartok, Gwyneth Walker, Snoop Dogg, Billy Joel, and so many more. So now that we've seen the extremely abridged origin of lullabies, let us take a look at the characteristics and function of them. Let's be honest, I prompted the question, what are lullabies like, 5 minutes ago, and I am not even close to answering it. This is my secret. You thought I was drinking tea or coffee or something more interesting. No, it's just water. All right, where were we? Cradle songs are sung softly by the parent or caretaker in an intimate setting with a mellow voice and soft vocal dynamics and close to the child. Close eye contact and facial expressions also play a part, as studies show that infants respond positively to infant-directed performances, meaning they will pay more attention to the soothing nature of the song. This is because mothers tend to modify their singing in the presence of their children than when they originally sang their song into a microphone. The study suggested that infants are highly salient by the positive emotions that are displayed in a parent's tone of voice. According to a 2001 research paper, researchers studied babies' reactions when they were being sung at by their fathers to determine if the babies preferred one parent's singing over the other. One of the things that the research revealed was that parents will sing and speak to their children differently than when they are addressing adults. These infant-directed characteristics can be described as greater pauses between phrases, slower tempo, and a higher pitch. And it is the higher pitch that is important for babies. The study says this is particularly interesting because across cultures and indeed species, high pitch is associated with friendliness and submission, whereas low pitch is associated with aggression. And it's not just the mothers that give off a higher pitch. Fathers and siblings will also raise their pitches in order to get a more smiling tone into their voices. Lullabies usually have lilting, repetitive melodies with leaps not exceeding an octave, and will gradually ascend and descend back to the tonic. Take the example Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. The largest leap starts at the very beginning and then slowly descends back down to the tonic in a stepwise motion. In fact, you see this descent in a lot of melodies. This melodic motion gives the feeling of downward, meaning to lie down to sleep. In 2002, McMaster University conducted a study on whether infants were sensitive to consonant and dissonant sounds. They had 40 children ranging from 2 to 4 months listen to consonant or dissonant sound trials and based their findings on how long the children were able to pay attention to said stimuli. They concluded that babies as young as 2 months old were sensitive to both types of intervals, and they greatly preferred consonant sounds. In addition, they also found it harder for babies to regain their interest after listening to a series of dissonant music.
Well, I'm not surprised.
Rhythm is also very simple. Going back to Twinkle Twinkle, you can see that all the notes are never shorter than an eighth note. The main notes land right on beats 1 and 3, and very little syncopation occurs. This kind of rhythm is extremely common in European-oriented cradle songs. However, you will see a lot of syncopation in African lullabies because sub-Saharan African music focuses a lot on strong rhythmic patterns and polyrhythms. The Bantu lullaby, Abiyoyo, is the perfect example for this. Along with simple rhythm and melody, most lullabies are composed in 6/8/3/4 or 4/4 time signatures. Why? Different time signatures will give off different music effects, meaning a song composed in 4/4 time signature will feel pretty different from the same song composed in 7/8 time signature. For example, if you sing the Bingo song, it is in 4/4 time signature, and it's probably the most straightforward of all the time signatures. So it sounds like B-I-N-G-O, 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 and Bingo was his name, oh. But if you do it in 7/8 time, then it's going to sound like B-I-N-G-O, 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 and Bingo was his name. Damn, Bingo's kind of a bop, actually. Like, woof. The 3/4 and 4/8 time signatures are perfect for lullabies because they both give off a waltz or sway feel to them and can be rhythmically calming. So if you ever do the Bingo song in 3/4 time signature, it may sound something like this. B-I-N-G-O, 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 and Bingo was his name, oh. It doesn't sound right.
No, don't like that.
Ooh, we're gonna get into functions. Functions. This is awesome. I love it. What is the original purpose, the prime purpose of a lullaby? And why were they invented in the first place? Earlier, when I talked about 18th century publications of nursery rhymes, I may have given the impression that nursery rhymes and lullabies are synonymous with one another, and that is not entirely accurate. The 2001 Encyclopedia of Children's Literature describes lullabies as a subgenre of the nursery rhyme, which encompasses all songs which help grown-ups either entertain or calm children from the ages of 0 to 5. The main difference between lullabies and its counter subgenre, the play song, is the function of said songs. While play songs are for the pure enjoyment of a child, lullabies at their core are work songs like sea shanties or chain gangs because they have one specific function. put the baby to sleep. Infants are fussy beings, and lullabies help establish a nighttime routine while also creating stronger bonds between parent and child. Many popular songs from other genres have been adapted or accepted as lullabies because they become more familiar to people as time goes on. This includes Somewhere Over the Rainbow from the musical The Wizard of Oz, You Are My Sunshine by Jimmy Davis, Amazing Grace, and Puff the Magic Dragon by Peter, Paul, and Mary. That's right, the pop anthem of 1960s America is originally a children's song. Did I just blow your mind? And that is perfectly fine and good. I love the fact that they have become lullabies for children. The point of this observation is if a song is meaningful to the parent while helping the infant fall asleep, then it is the perfect lullaby for you too. I'm not going to judge you harshly or judge you at all, really, if you want to play Metallica for your child, if that is what gets them to sleep. It's not my place to think that you're doing your child a disservice because you're not playing Mozart every night to them. For anyone who watched the characteristics section all the way through, thank you! I know it was long, but this just shows that the traits of lullabies are much more complex than their initial appearances. Not gonna lie, lullabies can be dark, but not all of them. We're gonna get into why dark lullabies exist in a little while, but first let us look at the various themes that you will find in cradle songs. By the way, this list is based on a 2012 PhD dissertation by Irene Watt entitled An Ethical Study of Text, Performance, and Function of Lullabies, and goes into great details about lullabies in general. I do want to add that this dissertation clocks in at a whopping 429 pages and is basically a tome. But we are not going to go over all of 429 pages of this paper. No, we're just going to give very brief overviews of these themes as well as one or two examples. But the dissertation is amazing and I encourage you to go read it. On to the list! Some folk lullabies center around important events, customs, or people as a way to preserve the historical and cultural significance of a certain society. They can give great insight into some of the traditions from lost civilizations, such as the Mesopotamians and the Roman Empire. Cradle songs can also give historical context from the female perspective, which is unusual to find in other written artifacts. This is because women are considered the main caretakers of children. A good example is the American slave song, Old Black Mammy's Lullaby. Many lullabies will center on descriptions of nature and landscape themes. This is very prominent in European lullabies of the 19th century. These songs exist partially to give the child a sense of identity in this world by describing animals or things that they can see, smell, or touch. This category can include ditties like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star or the Italian lullaby Il Lucellino by Puccini. This category can reference the child literally or metaphorically in cradle songs. If metaphorically, the baby will be referred as a bird or lamb or other vulnerable animal. Summertime by the opera Porgy and Bess is a great example of this, as the second verse describes the child as, quote, rising up singing, then you'll spread your wings and take to the sky. Children can also be mentioned in proximity of the parent, like being rocked in their arms, or in the most random locations, like up in a treetop. Why is the baby all the way up there? Fathers portrayed in lullabies assume the socio-normative provider role and are usually mentioned being outside of the home. They could be out hunting game or at work, like in the Miner's Lullaby. These songs are still sung from the mother's perspective, and it's very rare to find songs written from their male counterparts. You will only see more recent songs like Father's Lullaby by Nick Lachey that break this stereotypical mold. As previously stated, we hear the mother's perspective in almost all lullabies, as mothers are seen as the main caretakers of babies. You will see a full spectrum of emotions within these songs, such as love, fear, hope, grief, and acceptance. A cradle song that portrays all of the emotions is from Alban Berg's 1925 opera Wozzeck. The song Komm, my Bub is about a mother telling her son that he is just a poor whore child. The world is a cruel place, but he still gives her so much joy. Berg was an expressionist composer from the 20th century and focused on the depiction of fear in his works. And boy howdy does this aria have a lot of that. While it is evident the mother loves her child, the oppression she experiences throughout her life has made her into a bitter and cynical person. This is also one of the very rare instances where you will find a lullaby with a lot of dissonance in it. Deceptive messages or thievery can be seen in some folk lullabies, especially from era of unrest and war. The Scottish song The Highland Below is an example of a mother encouraging her child to steal a horse and cattle. You'll also find a number of cradle songs about women having affairs and deceiving their husbands. The lullaby Rock the Cradle John goes something like this. Rock the cradle John, rock the cradle John. Many a man rocks another man's child and thinks he's rocking his own. Man, it's so trashy, guys. Parents from past and present have sung cradle songs associated with their religion as a way of protecting the child from harm. Prayers and pleas for gods and angels to watch over the sleeping child is one of the most common phrases you will find within these lullabies. Christmas songs like Silent Night and Away in a Manger fall under this category, but they are so well known to the general public at this point that they may not be seen as lullabies anymore. If we had to put the original Babylonian tablets we previously discussed into just one category, it would be this one. This is because the culture thought lullabies were incantations to put the children to sleep. Cultures around the world have inherited myths and legends as superstitious beliefs, and these stories inspired many folk songs that taught people lessons of ethics and morality. Being abducted doesn't actually happen in real life as described in the Highland Fairy lullaby, but the song shows concerns parents have for the children's well-being, as well as teaching children to be wary of strangers. We all know a lullaby or nursery rhyme where the parent is trying to get the child to act in a certain way or to fall asleep via bribery. Hush Little Baby, All the Pretty Horses, Edo Lullaby, they all have elements of promises of a better future or material possessions if the child behaves. The darker side of this category occurs if the child misbehaves and then they are threatened with misfortune. And by misfortune, I am talking about either emotional or physical abuse or being eaten alive by the boogeyman. But speaking of monsters, we have saved the most gory category for last. Congratulations! Hooray! So happy. You're welcome, I guess. If you ever Google dark lullabies, you will receive a plethora of examples of lullabies related to monsters, murders, and other mayhem lurking in the night. Abiyoyo falls into this category because it is the name of a menacing giant who steals mischievous children from their beds. For he is always hungry. But he likes to be flattered, and if you sing his name long enough, he will go away. Rockabye Baby also falls into this category because in the end, the baby falls to its doom. It is important to note in this category, the infant is not automatically the victim in the song. Irish folk song and lullaby Maggie Malone is about a beautiful fishmonger who is just doing her job until she dies of a fever. It is said her ghost still wanders the streets selling her wares. Alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh. Selling cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. Why are there so many lullabies about death and murder? Well, we first have to acknowledge the fact that the lullaby is not just for the infant, but for the parent as well. The second thing we have to acknowledge about lullabies is infants pay very close attention to pitch, melody, tempo, and rhythm, and care very little for the actual text. In 1928, poet Federico Garcia Lorca gave a lecture in Madrid called On Lullabies about the cradle songs he collected during his travels around Spain. During his travels, he walked down the street one day and noticed a mother cradling her child to sleep and noticed the rather dark themes of her lullaby. He said, "Since then, I have tried to collect lullabies from every corner of Spain, wishing to know how my countrywomen lull their children to sleep. And after a while, I gained the impression that Spain utilizes its saddest melodies and most melancholy text to tinge her children's first slumber." Lorca theorized one reason parents sing dark lullabies is to help them vocalize their fears and concerns of their own realities. And a lot of researchers agree with this analysis. Ethnomusicologist Edward Petit once said in a PBS interview that people have said lullabies are the space to sing the unsung, a place to say the unsayable. You're alone. No one is listening, and you can express the feelings that are not okay to express in society. So instead of seeing the boogeyman as just another monster or the treetop as an unacceptable place to put a cradle, you can view them as metaphors for anxiety over the unforeseeable dangers that reality can give to parent and child. So for this last section, I thought it would be a good idea to do a brief analysis of Johannes Brahms' Wiegenlied, because what is the point of doing all of this history and characteristics, functions, and themes if we're not going to analyze a song that can exhibit all of these traits? First, with some brief history about the song itself. According to a 1999 biography by Jan Swafford, Johannes was dating a soprano named Bertha Faber in his 20s, and she would sing this song to him called Sis Anherrscht. However, they broke up after a while and didn't meet again for another 10 years. When he found out that she was going to give birth to her second child in 1868, he decided to write her Wiegenlied as a congratulatory gift. When you look at Wiegenlied, you can see that he incorporated some of Sis Anherrscht into its own composition as a secret love song to Bertha. By the way, the earliest known recording of this song was in 1906 by contralto Ernestine Schumann-Heink. You can access that song through the Library of Congress, and I will put that in the link down below. So let's take a look at the composition itself. Let's see here. It's a really simple melody to learn, just like other lullabies. It consists of 2 verses, about 16 measures each, and that's basically about it. You can see that Brahms slowly winds up to the highest note in the middle of the verse and gradually comes back down to the tonic in a stepwise motion. Surprise! There's quite a bit of tone painting occurring in the accompanied portion as well. The left hand keeps playing the tonic, in this case E flat, as a pedal note, which gives the song a sense of repetition and stability. The right hand keeps having these ascending and descending third chords, which give off a rocking feel. This is where you can see some of the inspiration from the Sis Anherrscht duet. From a chord progression standpoint, the song goes from tonic to dominant over and over again until around here when Brahms brings in good old subdominant chords to keep the audience on their toes. Kind of like when you spritz lemon on a pasta salad. It sounds boring, but I stand by it. So if we want to look at the themes of this, we have to look at, of course, the lyrics. And there are 2 main themes that can be seen here: nature and prayer. The first verse is from a German folk poem from an anonymous source. It describes the baby being laid down with flowers and cloves all around them. It closes off with the hope that God will grant the child to wake again. Okay, that's kind of morbid. Okay, parents should assume that their babies will wake. No, hoping. Okay, anyway, moving on. The second verse is from an 1849 poem by Georg Scherer, which details the angels will take the child to dreamland so that they could see a Christmas tree. Yep, the second verse is kind of a Christmas lullaby, so the more you know, folks. You may be wondering why a German lullaby became so popular in the United States. I mean, I've been wondering that for a while, and I'm still trying to figure that out. If I ever find solid evidence, I may do a follow-up video about it, but so far I'm still on the prowl. It doesn't feel like I should give an outro yet because there's still so much you can say about lullabies. We only cracked the surface with some basic history, characteristics, and some analyses of a few songs. But there is so much more that can be said. There's been a colossal amount of research and history into how to get babies to stay calm for an entire night. But there's just no time. And I did all this research. I over-researched for this, in fact. But it gave me so many more ideas of other videos to do. But I encourage you, the viewer, to take a closer examination into the lullabies that you know. You may find a greater appreciation into the familiar tunes that you grew up with. Links to all the books, articles, and music that I researched will be down in the description below in case you are interested in learning more. I'm gonna conclude this video with a performance of a few cradle songs, but I want to thank you for watching this brief overview of the lullaby genre. If you want me to discuss any other genres, ideas, composers, or anything music history related, then please leave me a comment down below. My Glassboard is already filled with ideas for the next music videos, but I will squeeze it in Thank you again, and have a lovely day. Sorry. It's okay. We're good. L'uccellino canta sulla fronda, dormi tranquillo, papuccia d'amore, che galla giù quella testina bionda, della tua mamma cosa la suo cuore. L'uccellino canta su quell'uomo, tante cosine belle impari, ma se vorrai conoscere quell'uomo, nessuno al mondo potrà dirlo mai. L'uccellino canta ciel sereno, dormi tesoro mio qui